this issue, I guess, with China and the United States is that they're both developed countries, and there are many countries that are still developing. And the argument, I guess, is that the US and China have used X amount of fossil fuels and polluted this much while they were developing, and yet these nations are being asked to reduce emissions while still trying to develop. So I guess the question is it possible for countries to develop and continue to develop while simultaneously cutting emissions?
Very good question. So in the study that I mentioned that's forthcoming from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, it's exactly the question that I get at in my 400 pages of writing. So let's take an example, Indonesia, which is, the fourth most populous or the fifth most populous country in the world. And according to their own hopes, they want the economy to grow at between 6 and 7% per year over the next 20 years. They want to be like China or South Korea and really achieve rapid growth. At least the government does. Now, if they were to do that over the next 20 years, their emissions per person would go up fivefold. Okay, right now they're at less than 2 tons per person. So they would get up to somewhere around 10. And then if you say they're one example, a lot of other countries that are at roughly 2 tons per year, if they all go from 2 to 10 in the next 20 years, then it doesn't matter what happens in the US and China. So the key thing that I wanted to explore in this other study, this global study, was let's think about Indonesia or India and other countries like that. Can they grow and still reduce their emissions? And the answer is very simple, yes. All they have to do is exactly what I said we do for the US. Invest, and in this case I'm saying invest about 1.5% per year of GDP in renewable energy and energy efficiency. If you think about rural areas in poor countries, they don't have electricity transmission as it is. So if you actually set up wind farms or you set up big solar panels, you can skip the whole development process of building out these huge utilities with electricity transmission lines. So it's very practical. It's cheaper. Or if you have small-scale hydro, like a lot of regions in India have hydro resources that can be utilized. So, for example, one of the major energy engineers in India from the Indian Institute of Technology, he says India can be 100% run on efficiency and renewables. It's practical. That's what he says, not me. Now, again, not everyone agrees with him necessarily, but we're getting to the point at which people recognize that this is practical, it's affordable, and it's actually, for developing countries, it's actually the best opportunity. So let's take an efficiency example. In India, 30% of energy consumption is used for cooking. And cooking is done really inefficiently. Really old-fashioned techniques, equipment. It's, just people cooking and burning wood. Bring in decent, high-efficiency, cheap equipment for homes in India. You get massive energy savings just from that simple measure. So yes, it's very practical based on cost estimates of how much it would take to build out a renewable sector in Indonesia and raise efficiency standards. If you do that, Indonesia can keep growing at 5-6% a year and still reduce emissions and expand job opportunities at the same time. So actually economic growth, if we think of it that way, economic growth is actually good for emission reduction and stabilizing the climate, because we're going to take 1.5% of that growth every year and put it into building a green economy.